All right, buckle up, everybody, because today we are going deep, deep into something I guarantee you've never thought much about,
Oh, I bet I can guess where this is going.
even though you do it every day,
Yep, sounds familiar.
multiple times a day even.
Yeah.
We're talking about the surprisingly complex world of peeing.
You got me.
Mhm.
But you're right, it is something we take for granted.
Absolutely. We're going to be learning all about it from, get this, a medical physiology handout.
Really?
Yep. By Dr. Rasha Eldeeb. And let me tell you, this handout is fascinating.
It's amazing what you find when you start digging into these everyday things.
It really is. Okay, so Dr. Eldeeb, she breaks down how our bladder, gets its instructions from not one, not two, but three different nerve supplies.
Three.
Yeah, the parasympathetic,
Okay.
the sympathetic, and the somatic nervous systems.
So like a three-way tug of war, constantly going back and forth between holding and, releasing.
That's a really good way to put it, a three-way tug of war. So walk me through this. Like, what does each of these systems actually do?
All right, so picture this. The parasympathetic nervous system, that's like your go signal, right?
Okay.
It tells the detrusor muscle.
The what?
Detrusor. It's the muscle surrounding your bladder.
Okay, the detrusor muscle.
Right. So it tells the detrusor muscle to squeeze.
To squeeze, okay.
And then at the same time, it tells the internal urethral sphincter to relax.
Okay, wait, back up. What's the, what was it, internal urethral sphincter?
So that's basically a muscular valve.
A valve, okay.
Yeah. So it's like opening the floodgates and turning on the pump at the same time.
Oh, wow, that's impressive coordination.
Right. And then we have the sympathetic nervous system.
Okay,
And this one does the opposite.
So it's like the stop signal.
Exactly. It relaxes the detrusor muscle and tightens that internal sphincter.
So it's like a built-in brake.
Exactly. It hits pause on the whole urination thing.
Wow. Okay, so we've got go and stop. What about that third player you mentioned? The somatic nervous system, was it?
Yes, that's where you come in.
What do you mean?
Well, the somatic nervous system, that controls the external sphincter.
Okay, external, so there's two.
Yep. And the external one, that's the one you consciously control.
So like when I'm trying to hold it in.
Exactly. Or when you decide it's time to, well, let go.
That's amazing. So even though we've got all these automatic systems going on,
Yeah.
we still have the final say.
For the most part, yeah. Pretty cool, huh?
It really is. So, okay, let's talk about how the bladder actually fills up. I always thought it was just like the more liquid, the more pressure.
I see where you're going with that.
But the handout says it's way more complicated.
You're right, it's not that simple. When your bladder's empty, there's basically zero pressure.
Okay,
But as it fills, the pressure doesn't just rise steadily.
really? So what happens?
So up to about 100 milliliters of urine, the pressure increases to about 10 centimeters of water.
Huh?
But then it kind of plateaus.
Wait, it levels off? So it can hold more liquid without the pressure going up? How's that even possible?
It all comes down to, well, the bladder's pretty amazing. It can actually relax and expand.
Like stretch out?
Exactly. And this helps keep the pressure stable even as the volume increases. It's related to something called Laplace's law, which has to do with pressure and tension in a sphere.
Oh, okay, slow down a bit.
Sorry. Basically, as the bladder fills, the radius increases, but the tension doesn't go up as much. So the pressure stays pretty constant.
Wow, that's pretty smart. So like that's why we don't feel like we have to pee constantly.
Exactly. Imagine if we didn't have this mechanism.
Oh man, I'd be running to the bathroom every 5 minutes.
Right. So yeah, it's a pretty neat design feature, but eventually that pressure does start to rise again.
Okay, so when does that happen?
Well, once the bladder gets to about 300 to 400 milliliters, the pressure starts climbing more rapidly.
Okay.
And that's when these little sensors in the bladder wall, called stretch receptors, they get activated.
Stretch receptors, okay.
And they basically trigger what we call the Micturition reflex.
Whoa, the Micturition reflex? That sounds serious. What happens then?
So picture this. It's like a chain reaction.
Yep.
Starting with those stretch receptors we talked about. When they sense that the bladder's full, they send a signal up through the pelvic nerve all the way to the spinal cord.
No way, all the way up the spine.
Yep. Specifically to the sacral segments.
Wow. Okay, so the signal goes all the way up. Then what?
And then yet the spinal cord sends a signal right back down the pelvic nerve.
It's like a boomerang. Why does it need to go back down to the bladder?
Because that's where the real action starts. This signal tells the detrusor muscle, remember that one?
Yeah, the one that squeezes the bladder.
Right. It tells the detrusor to contract, And at the same time, it tells the internal sphincter to relax.
Exactly. So everything opens up and, well, the rest.
So it's like a coordinated release.
You could say that, but there's one more thing.
What's that?
This Micturition reflex, it's actually self-regenerative.
Self-regenerative. What does that even mean?
Okay, so as the bladder contracts.
It actually activates those stretch receptors even more.
Oh, wow.
So you get even stronger contractions.
So it keeps going until the bladder is empty.
Exactly. It's this, positive feedback loop that makes sure everything gets, evacuated.
Wow, that's so cool. I never realized how much was happening.
It's a pretty efficient system.
But hold on. If it's a reflex, shouldn't that mean it's automatic? How do we control when we actually go?
That's a great question. And this is where our brains come in. So even though the Micturition reflex is automatic, we have these higher brain centers that can override it.
Like our brain can just say, nope, not now.
Exactly. The cerebral cortex, that's the part of the brain responsible for, conscious thought and decision making.
Okay.
It sends signals down to the spinal cord that basically put the brakes on the Micturition reflex.
Thank goodness for that. But, sometimes when I'm really stressed, I feel like I have to go even if I just went. Is that normal? Or am I just weird?
No, that's actually a great observation. And it brings us to another interesting part of this whole Micturition thing.
Okay, what's that?
The sympathetic nervous system.
Wait, didn't we already talk about that?
We did, but remember how we talked about fight or flight mode?
Oh, yeah, like when you get scared.
Exactly. When your body senses danger, the sympathetic nervous system kicks in.
Wow.
It's all about survival at that point.
So, my body's too busy worrying about a potential threat to worry about peeing.
You got it. It diverts blood flow away from the bladder and towards the muscles and heart, getting ready to either fight or run.
Wow, so it's like my body is saying, okay, bladder, you'll have to wait. We might need to meet a quick getaway.
Exactly. It's a pretty cool example of how our bodies prioritize things depending on the situation.
It really is.
Yeah.
Okay, so to recap, peeing involves this crazy interplay between the bladder, the spinal cord, the brain, 3 different nerve systems.
All working together.
It's amazing. Who knew it was so complicated?
You never really think about it, do you?
Nope. But I'm glad we did. So what happens if, something goes wrong with this whole system? The handout didn't really talk about that.
Well, that's a whole other topic, but essentially there are a lot of different things that can affect urination.
Like what?
Well, you've got everything from urinary tract infections to more complex neurological disorders.
Oh, wow.
No.
I've heard of incontinence, where people have trouble controlling their bladder.
Right. And that can happen for different reasons. Sometimes it's because of weakened pelvic floor muscles.
Okay.
Or sometimes it's because of nerve damage.
That sounds really tough to deal with.
It can be, yeah. And then there's the opposite problem, urinary retention.
What's that?
That's when people can't fully empty their bladder.
Oh, wow. Why does that happen?
It could be because of a blockage or a problem with the nerves or even certain medications.
Wow, so even though we take peeing for granted, it sounds like this whole system is actually pretty fragile.
In a way, yeah. But there are definitely things you can do to take care of your urinary health.
Like what?
Well, first and foremost, stay hydrated.
Drink lots of water.
Exactly. It helps flush out bacteria and prevents those UTIs.
Makes sense. Anything else?
Regular exercise can help too, especially exercises that work those pelvic floor muscles.
Oh, okay.
And of course, just listen to your body. Don't hold it in for too long.
Yeah, that never feels good.
It puts extra strain on your bladder, so it's best to just go when you need to.
So basically, be nice to your bladder.
Exactly. It's a vital organ and deserves a little TLC.
I'm so glad we did this deep dive. I never thought I'd be so fascinated by peeing.
Me neither. But it's amazing what you can learn when you start asking questions.
It really is. So everyone listening, I hope you now have a newfound appreciation for what's going on every time you head to the bathroom.
It's way more complex than you might think.
And remember, you actually have more control over this whole process than you realize.
Exactly. And that knowledge can help you stay healthy and, get help if something's not right.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Well, that wraps up our deep dive into the world of Micturition. I don't know about you, but I learned a ton.
Me too. It just goes to show even the most everyday things can be fascinating when you look closely enough.
That's so true. And hey, if you ever find yourself suddenly needing to go when you're stressed, don't worry, it's just your sympathetic nervous system doing its thing.
Exactly. It's totally normal.
So next time you feel that urge, take a moment to appreciate all those nerves and muscles working together to keep you healthy.
It really is a marvel of nature.
Well said. That's all for today, folks. Keep learning, keep questioning, and keep diving deep into the world around you. Until next time. And remember, you actually have more control over this whole process than you realize.
Exactly. And that knowledge can help you stay healthy and, get help if something's not right.
Couldn't have said better myself. Well, that about wraps up our deep dive into the world of Micturition.
It really was fascinating,
It
wasn't it?
really was. I learned a ton.
Me too.
Yeah.
It just goes to show even the most everyday things can be fascinating when you look closely enough.
That's so true. So to everyone listening out there, I hope you've got a whole new appreciation for what's going on every time you make a trip to the bathroom.
It's truly remarkable how the body works.
It is. And hey, if you ever find yourself suddenly needing to go when you're stressed,
Oh, yeah.
don't worry. It's just your sympathetic nervous system doing its thing, getting you ready for action.
Exactly. Nothing to be ashamed of.
So next time you feel that urge, take a second. Just appreciate all those nerves and muscles working together to keep you healthy.
It's like a perfectly choreographed dance.
Well said. That's all for today, folks. Keep learning, keep questioning, and keep diving deep into the world around you. Until next time.